and you're listening to BlinkyLights, the IT-focused podcast that is infrequently published, but chock full of content. How's that sound for a little tagline? My guest today, we're going to get right to it if you don't mind and kind of skip the whole intro deal. Hails from ABELsoft Incorporated. As a leader in the Canadian healthcare software market, ABELsoft has been serving dental and medical healthcare professionals for over 40 years. In addition to providing practice management and clinical software, they also offer support services to help clients protect their valuable data. And who doesn't need that? Am I right? Anthony Horvath is a VP of Client Services and Operations at ABELsoft Incorporated, a computer engineering technologist. He has over 25 years of experience in healthcare IT and specialized experience implementing and supporting clinical and practice management IT solutions. Anthony, welcome to BlinkyLights.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks for having me here today. It's a pleasure.
This is a real life thing, like the ransomware stuff that's floating around out there.
Absolutely. And what we've been finding lately is that it's just that sense of unawareness of the risks that are inherent within an office, and especially in cases where you have users that are using systems that have very private, confidential information, and these risks are out there. So cyber, crime is real, and if you're not protecting yourself, not taking proper precautions to secure the information that you have, and also being aware of what you need to do to keep the information private, eventually there will be a breach or a risk of serious impact on your business.
My message has changed from it's incredibly likely that this is going to happen to this is definitely going to impact you. It's more like a matter of time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's some interesting facts I actually have here as well. What we've been finding is that there's probably over 21% of business owners out there that, there's only about 20% of business owners out there that believe they're ready for a cyber attack. And these are serious threats that we're referring to here. In addition to that, only 1 in 3 business leaders admit, that they don't have any strategy on how to protect themselves from these threats. And then we have the real facts, which is there's 106 attacks a small business encounters every year, and they're completely unaware that these are even happening to their business. So it's really a sense of, again, protection, detection, and then making sure you're responding to whatever those attacks are. And we're finding that there's facts out there that it will take upwards of 229 days from the point of infiltration of an attack to when you actually detect that it's there. So imagine this. It's like someone breaking into your home and living in your home for 229 days before you find out they're there. And that's the reality of it.
That's freaky.
It is.
It's... When we're discussing this with our clients, we break it down kind of like how there's been these. I don't have to explain this to you or any of the people who are going to listen to this podcast, but in tech, there's always these catchwords, and the big ones in recent years have been things like the cloud, or like it just gets these words where everything gets thrown into one basket under that word, and the one that we're hearing and using, because it is how you can explain these types of things to end users, is the stack, your security stack. And we always say that the very beginning of the stack, or the first layer of the onion, is education.
Absolutely.
It has nothing to do with what ABEL as software vendor or CTS as IT or hardware vendor can provide. It's literally educating the end user so that they're even aware that these things exist.
That's where it all begins, and that's why podcasts like this are so important for those that are unaware of what these terms mean, how it may impact them, how can they go about mitigating the risks. information and education is the key, right from the business owner to the frontline users of the software that they use daily to run their businesses. And if you're not educating your team members, then there is a really high risk, both from the perspective of privacy and security. What we've been finding is that of all the industries out there, healthcare is definitely highly at risk. So when we look at the different kinds of information that cyber criminals are after, you think of things like credit card information. You think of usernames and passwords, and then you think, well, healthcare data. But out of those three, the most sought after is healthcare data. And the reason for that is that, you can change your credit card numbers, you can change your username and password, but you can't change your identity, who you are. So when there are criminals looking to steal information that can really bring them value on the black market, they're looking for medical records. They're looking for, health card numbers that can be used to receive free health care in Ontario. They're looking for personal information about medical records that identify an individual so uniquely that they can steal their identity. And then credit card numbers can then be acquired based on that. So this is why healthcare is such a target. And this includes, dental offices, medical offices, and that's, what we deal with on a day-to-day basis. And the threat is real. We receive calls from our clients at least once or twice a week related to some type of threat that they've received, an attack, be it a ransomware, which again, they are looking for money. And that's what ransomware is. It's simply a vulnerability that's been exposed, some malware that's been introduced into the environment, and someone encrypts and locks down all that data that you need to be able to serve your patients and provide proper health care.
I knew this conversation would be interesting between the two of us because we're working in the same field, but almost from a different stance. So I'll go out and deal with this stuff in the wild as it happens,
right,
whereas you guys get the call that it like pre-IT essentially, and then you guys would have to say, hey, go and get somebody to fix this thing up.
Exactly. So that's exactly what we end up dealing with, is sort of the aftermath at times.
Yeah.
The lack of preparation is where we end up coming in, unfortunately. And these risks that we're talking about, these are everything from, hackers trying to get into your system, viruses that are infiltrating, malware that is coming through software that people are downloading without realizing, what's in there. There's internal threats that you'll find as well, and just simple system failures also are part of that.
And what can you do to mitigate some of these risks? The big one, I'll always start out one of these talks by saying I'm here to educate you, and I'm here to challenge some of your beliefs when it comes to IT security. Because a lot of times I think it becomes this thing, we have people to fix the computers, we have people to fix the software, so it's kind of a hands-off thing. That's not the case at all. And so the big thing that I try to relay is that we all inherently, because we carry these magnificent computers around in our pockets, we have to take ownership over our own technical stance.
When we look at how to mitigate the risk, certainly the first thing we always advise our clients is education. That's the number one. Make sure that they are the experts, or they reach out to those that are the experts. Secondly is you want to make sure that you are addressing all of the threats that could be coming into your office, and making sure that you're taking the appropriate steps to, again, protect, detect, and then respond to those. We're finding that there are several attack vectors that we refer to them as. And again, sort of the analogy I use, which is with your home. So you have the perimeter of your fence outside your home. Then if you have that in place and they get through that, then okay, maybe you have the lock on the front door. And then if they do get inside, then what other tactics are you going to use to protect yourself? And then it's just a matter of, if you do get attacked, and more so when you do get attacked, how are you going to recover from that? And how are you going to recover from that quickly without any impact on your business and the least amount of downtime so that you can continue to run your business and, in the case of healthcare, serve your patients. That information that you have in your system is critical to making sure your patients stay healthy and safe. And so recovery time is key because it's always, as we were saying, it's not if, it's clearly when you're going to get attacked.
Yeah, the recovery portion is a big thing because have you ever heard of security fatigue? So security fatigue is essentially where people here use good passwords, don't open email attachments, and when you hear that over and over and over and over again, it becomes almost like this white noise, and you're not really taking in the lesson anymore.
That's right.
As much as you're just hearing the same thing over and over again.
Exactly.
But the recovery portion is something that I don't hear a whole lot of people talking about, except maybe lately since WannaCry.
Yeah, exactly. And we're finding that, like you mentioned, passwords, even though people do keep hearing the case of, don't open emails with attachments and change your passwords regularly. As of today, the two most common passwords out there, and I'm sure you'll know what they are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and password.
What if it has a capital P?
Well, then you're safe, of course. and in the dental office, it's username of dental and password of dental.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously those are not secure credentials. And but like you said, it's something that people hear about a lot, but don't actually take heed on. We develop software applications. That's our business. And we built into that application really some strong security and authorization and privilege control. And what we're finding is that clients are just ignoring the security systems that are available to them. And exactly by that, circumventing by using completely weak usernames and password combinations, walking away from their workstations without locking them, leaving them wide open for anyone else to sit down physically.
That's right. Pro tip, the Windows key L, lock your workstation.
It's fantastic because when I do hear exactly that, a client informing me, you know what, Anthony, it's just way too much time and effort for me to have to log in and then log out and lock my machine. And then when I come back again after I grab my coffee to log in again, and we're just too busy for that. And I said, well, are you going to be too busy to re-enter all that data that you've lost for the past 2 weeks because you've been breached? Well, certainly not. So take the time, secure your system. And when it comes to security and privacy, from the Dental Association, RCDSO, the College of Dental, is also mandating the need to secure that private health information. And that's exactly what we're dealing with. There are severe penalties for any healthcare private information breaches that may occur. So, this is no joke any longer. It's never been, but now they're definitely tightening down on the requirements and regulations. So, yes, it may be inconvenient to come up with a password every 30 days and change that, but it's the safety, security of that information and your patient's private information, which is what you're really looking to protect.
One of the things we've been trying to do is to encourage the placement or development of policy, even in offices that the argument is always, well, we're not big enough for an IT security policy. Do you have computers? Because that's big enough in my mind.
It's not just the cyber attacks we're looking at. We're also looking at that social engineering part of it, where individuals will come in and pretend they're somebody else, make a phone call to the office and say, hey, I'm so-and-so, and I forgot my information. Could you maybe read it back to me, and read my email back to me?
Yeah.
Offices users need to be aware that those threats also exist. And so it's not just, again, locking down your front door and making sure that you've got the fences up and your security dogs out front, because the UPS man will walk right in the front door and you'll let them in. And that's typically how a lot of these threats are, is that, you'll find that there's systems out there where they've got everything locked down, but the biggest vulnerability is the person that opens the front door and lets the man in with the USB key in their pocket. So Those are serious for sure.
Every attack vector is about violating or otherwise exploiting trust. Mm-hmm. But there's a big difference between preparedness and paranoia, right? Because paranoia is not going to serve you, but preparedness will. Whereas, some of the, even like a bare bones, simple IT security policy that we're trying to instate is, if you see a big red screen with a countdown on it, what do you do and who do you call?
Right.
You unplug the cable that looks like this, right? And it's an Ethernet cable because we don't want it to touch anything else.
Right.
And you call these people in this order.
You may have received, you opened an email, you downloaded something, you found some really cool free software. You thought, hey, this is going to be pretty neat. I'll just download that. Nobody in the office really will know, right?
Nothing is free on the internet.
Exactly. If it's free, it means danger. So, and then all of a sudden, the timer goes off. And it starts ticking. It's a ticking time bomb. And eventually it will then manifest itself and then lock you down. And there have been cases, as you mentioned, where unfortunately we've had some really serious, situations where clients have lost everything. I mean, they come in the morning and they open their screen and there's that warning message saying, you know what, everything's been locked and you owe me thousands of dollars. And then we'll unlock your system.
Yeah.
And if you don't pay within 2 days, it doubles the ransom. And if you don't pay a few days later, your data is going to be deleted. So, this is the problem. Now, we had this one case, and it's a true story, and I feel for the clients. They came in one morning, had the ransomware message on screen, did not have any recovery solutions in place. No data backups, didn't have anything at all that they could recover from. So they had no choice. So they paid the ransom. And thankfully the criminals released their data and they were back up and running again. That was a couple days later. So they continue on their merry way, start working again, and don't they get hit again the next week. Well, between the time that they had the initial attack, they never took precautionary measures to implement a backup solution or to wipe their system of the malware that was introduced. And so they were attacked again. And so now they had to pay twice as much as the first time. And of course, what choice they had? They still didn't have any access to data, so they paid again. So this is now into thousands, tens of thousands of dollars they've had to pay just to recover their data. So that's the real risk out there. Now, we've had some positive outcomes where clients have been attacked, but fortunately, they utilize services like, what CTS provides or what ABEL provides, where they have backup and disaster recovery services that they can rely upon. So they have experts there that can help them through. They set up proper planning in place. So they have the systems already to mitigate the problem when it does occur. And that's how those clients have been able to get their business back up and running within hours, as opposed to having to re-enter all their data that they may have lost for years. So.
We say that the rule or the industry standard is the 3-2-1 rule. So you should have 3 copies of your most important data in 2 physical locations, with one of those locations being off-site.
Absolutely.
Here's the frontline example of why that needs to be the case.
We've been talking a lot about cyber attacks, but consider things like, fire, theft. It's common for us to receive calls and dental offices tend to have, and especially healthcare offices tend to have, a lot of expensive equipment in there. Obviously, they're dealing with a variety of portable devices in the office, tablet PCs, things like that. So they are open and susceptible to be broken into and for theft to happen. And unfortunately, what we tend to find is that, as you mentioned, the 3-2-1 approach where have 3 copies of your backup. Well, that's not necessarily the case. There may be 1 copy. It's a USB drive, like you mentioned, sitting physically still connected into the server. And so when they steal the server, of course, they're going to steal your backup as well. And so, you could be saying, yeah, I religiously am doing backups every evening. And you say, yeah, you sure are. And where is that backup device now? Right, it's been stolen as well.
Yeah.
And nothing off-site, nothing in the cloud. And so really, you need to cover all those bases. So it's not just cyber attacks we're talking about. It's all sorts of disasters that can happen from, as I mentioned, theft, fire, flood, which will completely paralyze your office. So services like what CTS offers and what ABEL Dent offers with respect to cloud-based remote backup solutions, vital. So that, in addition to your on-site, on-premise backups that you would perform onto a USB drive, and then you physically take that off-site and put that into a safe spot, storage safe somewhere that you know that if should there's something happen, you have a way of recovering from that. You want to put a protection system in place, be aware of how to protect yourself, but not only protect, then you still need to have systems in place to monitor and detect that there's something there. So, there's tools out there available. There's antivirus, anti-malware. There are firewalls. These are software or hardware appliances you can put on, where that's basically the perimeter. That's your fence that you put up in front of your home, so to try to inhibit any intruders from coming in. So if you don't have those systems running, those software applications running within your environment, and you're not keeping them updated, you're at risk. So the key is not to go out and download a free version of one of those antivirus softwares. Actually subscribe to it, because when you subscribe to it, you receive updates. And as we saw this morning, a new ransomware is making its way through the world right now. And I'm sure that by the end of the day, you're going to have antivirus companies that will have provided a solution to at least inhibiting that from coming through, or at least assisting in some way of tracking and detecting that, so to help protect your system. So that's the key. And then, of course, the responding part of it is that once you have protected your system and you've detected there's an issue, then what action are you going to take to now recover from that? And all those pillars need to be in place for you to be fully protected and to protect the privacy of your healthcare information. Part of the other things that you need to also consider is, we mentioned, there's the computer equipment part of it. There's your users, and then there's the privacy awareness that is extremely important. So with businesses, and especially when you're dealing with healthcare information, you do require to have policy guidelines related to privacy. And that also means there should be someone identified in your business as a privacy officer that is familiar with the guidelines for managing healthcare information and protecting that healthcare information. And normally there needs to be at least some type of a business agreement between your dental or medical office and the IT solution provider that you're working with, simply because those service providers also have access to private health information. So when you and I are supporting a client, we're transferring data, we're accessing the application that stores that private health information. We may at times, have access to private health information. Now, obviously, under our code of conduct, we have our own confidentiality agreements, but those should also be established with those businesses. And so, having users, or at least an individual within the organization that understands what those privacy requirements are, is paramount. So. And when it comes to then the users itself on education, we find that the dental industry tends to have a lot of turnover with users, and so that retraining is extremely important. And when you are onboarding new staff members to your team, extremely important again to review those e-policies that you have in your office. What do you do with emails? How do you respond to them? What information are you allowed to actually send by email? Remember, private health information should never be sent over email. It's an unsecured channel. Anyone can access that. So the only way you should be communicating any sort of private health information is through a secure channel. Things like patient portals, where a patient can log in using a secure username and password that allows them to gain access to information like their health records, medical conditions, address information. But only through those means should that information be transferred. Unfortunately, we are finding that, obviously everyone's using emails these days and are trying to move away from paper and feel, hey, this is so convenient. Why don't I just simply send the medical health records of my patient over to my colleague and they can review it and give me a consult and then send back the results? You really can't do that. You are at risk of now having a privacy breach of that patient's health information.
It's really interesting. I'll be honest with you, I didn't know. I guess it's not really or maybe it is arguably, now I'm just thinking about it live here. I don't know of many offices that have outright told us that they have a privacy officer. That makes a whole lot of sense, that there should be somebody on site who's responsible and basically governs that inside the office.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, those individuals are the ones that need to identify who is authorized to access what information within their environment and how the information is then communicated externally from their office to other parties. When you were saying how, be careful of the open Wi-Fis, same thing in the dental office, what we tend to find is that as offices many times now offer their patients free Wi-Fi access, what we're finding is that access is actually on their main network that all their patient health information is on. So the likelihood of someone being able to sit down and access, some patient health records is very, very real. So segregate, segment your networks so that you're not sharing information that is relevant to your practice with your patients that have absolutely no need to see that. And that goes hand in hand with, as we're talking about security and having users come in and potentially try to look at information. Take advantage of the features that are available with your systems and your software solutions, such as locking your desktop when you walk away to grab a cup of coffee, so someone just simply can't sit down and start using the system as if they were you, because it is logged in as you, and so now someone else sits down and it looks like you're the one that has performed some fraudulent activity. Secondly, from that, there's a number of features available to prevent certain users from accessing certain areas of the application. So not everyone should be able to write a prescription for medication, right?
Everybody's an admin.
So why not? Exactly. So everyone's an administrator, and anyone and everyone can write a prescription for themselves or for anyone else. So those are the simple facts of securing your, the privileges and permissions of your users as to what they can and should have access to. And then thirdly, use some of the features within software, like ABELMed has functionality where, privacy features, it will hide certain information off your main appointment calendar or from the screen, so that if someone is sitting at the front desk serving a patient, the patient just kind of leans over to take a look at the screen because you might be, speaking to them about, is this address correct? They're not seeing other records of other patients that, hey, I didn't realize John Smith came here, and wow, look at that. He's got quite the history of medical care that he needs. So those are, again, important privacy considerations to be had.
If people want to find out more about ABELsoft, what you guys are doing over there, how can they go about doing that?
So the best way to get a hold of us is on our website. So you can go to abelsoft.com, and then we have two segments of the organization there. We have ABELMed and ABELDent. So, of course, our dental product services, dental sites with respect to large and small clinics. And then we have the ABELMed product, which, again, for practice management and medical record keeping. Or just give us a call at the 1-800-267-2235 number. We're located in Burlington.
First of all, Anthony, thank you for coming in.
I appreciate you inviting me here.
This is BlinkyLights from Brantford, Ontario. And as we said at the beginning of the show, this is a somewhat infrequent podcast. So, until next time.